Okay, I'm back. And I see JJ answered the question that he thinks the Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son. That's going to start a holy war. I've got a new Mountain Dew to chug. I had a bunch of shows to catch up on, so I figured we'd do these separately, just given time for an audience to build. Because I'm getting really sick and tired of what's going on with this whole, the lies. This is going to seem like a little bit of a rabbit trail at first. And hi again, friends, the lying liars and the lies that they tell. Before my life as a libertarian, I had written a book on hermeneutics of a particular biblical passage. And what hermeneutics is, let's look up a technical definition. I believe, I did that thing with a Mac where if you hit one of the hot corners, it'll put your screen asleep. Hopefully, I didn't lose the stream. Hold on, I'm trying to get my screen back. If you guys can see me, I hope so, because I have a black screen. La-di-da, giving this a second to come back. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to end the stream and come back. Yep, here I am. I'm back now. It looks like I froze. All right, we're good now. I don't know what I did now. No, it's nothing like Dianetics, but hermeneutics, if I were to give the definition before I look it up, would be the art and science of the interpretation of written texts. Let me see how close I am to the dictionary definition. Hermeneutics. Yes, the branch of knowledge that deals with interpretation, especially of the Bible or literary texts. So, hermeneutics means the interpretation of words. If you care about communication, if you care about understanding, and not just about trying to prove a rhetorical point to further your own agenda, when you are listening to what somebody says, you don't just listen to the bare surface meaning of the words they use. You want to know what they mean by what they say, because words are arbitrary. Like, since we were doing Mountain Dew before, I am holding a soda can. There is nothing magical about the arrangement of letters that form soda can. We could have easily have called this item a gobbledygook. And if we all agreed that this was a gobbledygook, that is what we would be calling it. Now, words themselves, though, are often, I'm struggling for the right word for the word. That's pretty funny right now. They're ambivalent's not the word I'm trying to use, but they're susceptible to multiple interpretations. It's not black and white with words. It's not always rock solid, because you have things like analogies and metaphors and figures of speech and idioms. And I had to deal with that a lot when it came to trying to interpret the Bible. Because there would be idioms such as, let me give you a typical biblical idiom. A lot of biblical literalists, and that includes Christians as well as atheists, will point to passages like where it says that the sun will go out. And it will say that this happened in history. The sun went dark. And don't realize that in ancient Near East idiom, which is the literary milieu of the Bible, sun, moon, and stars, and we even use that today, are symbols of political powers. Why do you think most of our flags of countries have moons, stars, things like that? Because the astrological or the astronomical world was viewed as the province of the gods, and political rulers were almost viewed in a godlike sense. So going way back into human history, sun, moon, and stars were often used symbolically. We even say that today about, we call them movie stars, or when someone's fortunes are on the rise, we say their star is rising. And when their fortunes are on the fall, we say their star is falling. Or when we say to somebody, I would give you the moon, we still use this kind of symbolism today. And I'm going to get to the point with the liars about the takeover, but I'm trying to explain to you just some interpretations. So when the Bible says, and the sun went dark, it means a political calamity just happened. And I can prove this by pointing to another passage that talks about when things are supposed to go well for Israel. And it says that the sun shall shine forth 100 times. Do you think it would be a good thing if the sun shone forth 100 times? Can anyone say SPF 10 million? No. It just meant when the constellations and the sun was brighter, things were good. When it was darkened, things were bad. That is typical biblical imagery. So when you look at passages about the second coming of Christ, where it says, and the sun will be dark, and just all this stuff, you cannot take that literally. You have to take it literarily. To interpret the Bible literally means to take it for what they mean. And once you understand all this symbolism, when you go to the book of Revelation, it's a lot easier to understand, because these are idioms. And the ancient Near Eastern people, the Jewish culture, is very hyperbolic. And to take it literally, you will completely miss the point, which is what a lot of modern Christians do. And they come up with these just absolutely ridiculous things. Let me give you another example. The Psalms say, David says to God, one day in your courts is worth more than 1,000 outside. Is he literally telling God, it's worth more than 1,000 outside, but 1,001 outside? Nah, I'll take 1,001 outside. Or when it says that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, does that mean he doesn't own the cattle on the 1,001st hill? No, the word 1,000 in biblical idiom meant a lot. It's like when I say, I love you, you look like $1,000,000. We even say that today because we use 1,000,000 instead of 1,000. It doesn't mean, darling, you look like $1,000,000, but not 1,000,001. Okay. So just to get to my background is in the art and science of interpretation of words. When you're dealing with young bucks full of piss and vinegar, which is what the Mises Caucus is. They even made a shirt about it once I called them that. You have to speak to them or understand them using their own language. And young men use very militaristic language. It doesn't mean literal, military, or hostile meanings. It's just the idiom of that set of people. And you are being thoroughly dishonest if you take that hyper literally. So when you got a bunch of eager young men saying, we're going to take over, what do they mean by that? They'll tell you what they mean by that. So to sit and focus on the word takeover and import every negative connotation you can into it just goes to show that you are looking for an excuse. You are not trying to understand what they mean. You are doing, and now I'm not a Mormon, but I am going to use a Mormon expression, which Mormons will use when they're attacked a lot. They call them offenders for a word. You're people who will latch onto a word and purposely derive offense from it to try to discredit people without saying, you said something. What do you mean by that? So what is meant by takeover? That's what we have to deal with. And anyone who just keeps repeating that word without getting to the actual point of what is meant is a fucking liar. So, what is meant? They'll tell you what is meant. They mean by outcompeting you. They mean, and I'm now going to pretend like I'm one of these young bucks. What this young buck means is I'm going to kick your ass in an election. A bunch of us are going to come to your convention and outcompete you. What the hell is wrong with that? You don't like it that you might get outcompete? And when I say compete, I will say to Jess, yes, and following the rules for competition. It'd be like having a sports team that says they're going to dominate the other sports team. They don't mean they're going to go on the field and break all the rules and just like start cracking skulls and saying, fuck the referee. They mean they are going to win through competition. And that is exactly what is meant by the takeover language. And those of you who keep acting like that's not what is meant, you are a thoroughly dishonest person. Because in every single circumstance, the rules have been followed, and you don't like it that they are better at it than you are. Too bad. Outcompete them. You're just admitting that you're not as good. Now, if you want to start arguing about whether they are actually libertarians, that's a different argument. And I will save that argument for another day. But most people who are arguing and getting all ass mad over the takeover language are not even disputing that they're libertarians. It's just libertarians of a different flavor they might not agree with. And I'll tell you right off, I don't like the takeover language, but I don't go and try to make it mean something it doesn't. Why don't I like it? Because it's not my culture. I'm not a young buck full of piss and vinegar. I'm a nearly elderly pacifist woman. I don't like militaristic speech. But my language preferences doesn't mean they mean something different than what they actually do mean. And for people to keep saying, we're preventing a takeover. What I try to say when I talk to people about interpretation, where I say words are just containers for meaning. And if you want to be sure you are understanding somebody properly, do the substitution method. Take out the one word that is unclear and substitute in the meaning you think it means and see if it still makes sense. Or substitute in the meaning they said and see if you don't sound like an absolute jackass. So if we take out the word takeover and we put in what they really mean into these complaints, we're preventing them coming in from voting us out of office. Do you realize what bastards you sound like once you put in the real meaning? We are expelling people. We are breaking the rules because we don't want them to fairly win offices. Then you are committing fraud at every single convention you have when you claim there's an open election, when you claim that everyone has a fair shot at winning chair seat, vice chair seat, whatever it might be. You are thoroughly dishonest. Do the word substitution and see if you don't sound like the bad guy. Every single time they have followed the appropriate procedure. And every single time someone has tried to avoid the quote unquote takeover, which if you put in the meaning they mean, avoid getting ousted from our seats through valid means, they have broken the rules, like flagrantly. Now, to piggyback on what I said last time, if your rules have made it so that you cannot follow them without destroying the whole reason for the organization, I'm the first to say, I'm the heretic there and say rules be damned. But in every single one of these circumstances where these people thought they were in some kind of threat that they had to defend themselves from, they could have followed the rules. They didn't because they know they wouldn't have won. Totally different thing. And the minute any of these Mises guys break the rules, I'll be the first to call them out. And I have a proven track record on this, no matter what anyone wants to say. I was the parliamentarian for the Pennsylvania Convention, where most of the Mises Caucus people were very, very upset at what happened there. And whose quote unquote side did I take? The chair, a guy I don't even like, because it has nothing to do with liking. On most of those rulings, I think Steve Sheets was correct. And I do not like Steve Sheets. My liking, not liking, had nothing to do with it. I have a proven track record of calling out people I like. When New Hampshire first happened, I didn't even know any of those other guys. I knew Gilletta. Gilletta was my friend. I called her out. When Delaware happened, I kind of knew Amy. I kind of knew Bill, but we didn't have conversations all the time. You want to know who I knew better? Will McVeigh. And I called him out. And the minute the Mises Caucus people break the rules, I will call them out. But they haven't. But I am getting sick and tired of the lies about this quote unquote takeover and making it sound like it's something sneaky. It's open, it's out there, and it's following the rules. And all it means is we don't like how you're running this party. So we are going to try to get people that we think would run the party better in seats of leadership. That is all that it means. But you can't say that, because then you'll look like the tyrants that you are. Now we see who wants a social club, don't we? This is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Completely tired of these lies. And you want to know what brought me to the boiling point today? Is one of these lies was told by a member of the Radical Caucus. Let me tell you something about some hypocrisy here, dear sir. You don't like the takeover language? You want to know when I first joined the Radical Caucus, my biggest complaint with the Radical Caucus was, do you know what their slogan used to be? Take back the LP. That sounds an awful lot like takeover to me. Have you called out the Radical Caucus for that, dear Radical Caucus member? Go look up the domain history on what is, and you will see that Take Back the LP, it was either .com or .org, used to be owned by the Radical Caucus. And I complained about that language when I joined the Radical Caucus, just like I complain about I don't like the terminology of takeover. And if you go to the Radical Caucus's homepage, it says their goal is to re-radicalize the LP. That sounds an awful lot like takeover to me too, because a lot of people in the LP aren't radicals. How do you think they feel about re-radicalization? Any of you Radical Caucus members who just have an issue with the quote unquote takeover language, you ought to quit the Radical Caucus on the spot, because they have the exact same goal: to take back the LP for radical principles. I cannot stand hypocrisy. Maybe you didn't know this history of the caucus. Now you do, sweetheart. Every special interest caucus wants to see their goals implemented. That is the point of a caucus, not a fucking social club. You just don't like it because they're good at it. But stop lying about the language, because I'm going to make it a regular feature now to call out you fucking liars, because I am tired of it. Outcompete them. Let me tell you a story. No, I know nothing about what's going on with Dave Smith, so this isn't about Dave Smith. This is about something a Radical Caucus member posted today that set me off. I'm going to tell you a story. I used to be a member of a forum. I used to be really big into V-Bulletin forums, and I didn't like the way it was being run. So, you know what I did? I went and started my own. And the one I started ended up being more successful. And you want to know what I did when people complained that they didn't like the way mine was being run? I said, go start your own. I proved anyone can do it. You don't like the success of the Mises Caucus? Outcompete them. But lying about them, that just shows that you lack character, imagination, and ambition. And talent, probably. I don't know if I lost monetization with the F-bomb, Fidalgo, because we were already how many minutes in? There's a certain number of minutes in. Where's my timer? That you can say it, but I might have. I'm going to put monetization off on this video because if you incorrectly categorize your videos as being eligible for monetization too many times, YouTube dings you. So I'm not even going to try to get this one monetized. But that doesn't mean I can't get super chats. But I'm sick and tired of this. And I figure I'm the one to talk about it because I personally don't like the takeover language. But it doesn't matter what I like. They don't exist to please a middle-aged woman. The majority of the caucus are young men, and that's the language that young men like. And I like men to be men. So stop lying and say what it is they're actually doing. And if you want, and let me tell you, I was in the inner circle of the Radical Caucus in 2016. And you want to know what we tried to do? We tried to make sure delegations were full of radicals. Isn't that what the Mises Caucus is trying to do? See, what really set me off is the Radical Caucus people acting all offended over this. Because I was part of the strategy group in 2016. We tried to fill delegations with radicals. We tried to fill the platform committee with radicals. And if you go and search through old discussions, what was the Radical Caucus's goal? To fill the LNC with radicals. So you guys are a bunch of fucking hypocrites for being upset for the Mises Caucus for wanting to do the same thing. And when I say you guys, I'm not talking about every radical. I've got a lot of friends in the Radical Caucus. I'm a member of the Radical Caucus. I'm a dues-paying member. They get $10 a month from me. So I'm not talking about the entirety, but I am talking about the vocal few. If you really have a problem with that kind of agenda, you ought to quit the Radical Caucus because they have the exact same agenda. The only difference is they suck at it. They're ineffective. We were becoming very effective in 2016. And do you want to know why I quit the Radical Caucus? I quit for 2 reasons. I quit because Steve Sheets fucked up the books and lied to me for a year. Y'all want to, some of you Radical Caucus, it's ridiculous. He fucked up the books. It's public record. Go look it up on the FEC site. And that's why I quit. Because he lied to me about when he'd fix it. I didn't blame him for fucking it up. The FEC rules are a labyrinth. But once we knew we fucked up, they needed to fix it. And he, month after month after month after month, he told me he was going to fix it. I could probably find the old chat, maybe because I blocked her. I think I would have to unblock her to find it. The old chat I had with Susan Hogarth when I told her I was resigning over this. You know, Mama has receipts. Now, I tried to go back one time and find this receipt where Nick Sarwark was making fun of mentally handicapped people. or people that compete in the Special Olympics. And that was a long time ago. It's when I first joined the party, because I wanted to show what a hypocrite he was with his wokeness now. But I no longer could find it, so it's my word against his. I would hook myself up to a lie detector, and I offer that challenge right now to Nick Sarwark. If he's saying I'm lying, that he made a Special Olympics joke going, "Oh, you win the Olympics, but you're still a R word." He said it, and I would take a lie detector test to that every day with the challenge that if I fail, you can embarrass me in front of the party, and I'll pay for it. But you absolutely did say it. It might not be an exact quote, but it was just like that. He says, I forgot what it was. It goes, yeah, you know what was funny about winning the Special Olympics? You might have just won the Olympics, but you're still, a derogatory term for disabled people. He absolutely said it. And I absolutely quit the Radical Caucus. It was 2 reasons. I already had one in the back of my mind, but the reason I gave Susan Hogarth was because Steve Sheets lied to me about fixing for a year. And I probably still have that private message if you all don't believe me. The second reason was I was running for an officer position, and I didn't think officers should be members of caucuses, which I now completely changed my mind on because I'm treated as a member of a caucus even when I wasn't. But yeah, Mr. Holier Than Thou, Nick Sarwark, made an R person joke to me when at the time I had a living relative that was mentally handicapped. Now, you want to know something? Was I all butthurt and offended? No. I realized that humor is dark. Do I think he was prejudiced against mentally handicapped people? No. I think he was making a dark joke. But he acts now like anybody who makes a dark joke should be thrown out of the party. When Nick also made very sexually inappropriate jokes to volunteers and other LNC members. And I've said this on another show, but I'll say it again. In that conversation, somebody who's still in, unless he's deleted it, somebody who's still in the LP admin, social media admin group can search for it now. If you're listening, search for it now and screenshot it, where he told everybody that if he ever had to mail anyone a dick pic, it would require extra postage. I think that's funny. But is that appropriate under Mr. Wokester's sexual harassment kind of scheme? No. Saint Nick ain't as saintly as you think. I laughed my ass off. I thought it was funny. But under his scruples, it shouldn't be. And remember, I don't even know how I got on Nick here. It's just the hypocrisy is where I went. Nick said that libertarian, and this is Google it. It's in Salon. That libertarians being denied ballot access was equivalent to the civil rights struggles of Black people having to sit at the back of the bus. Saint Nick. Now, when he said that, what did I do? I groaned. Did I want to cancel him? No. We all make dumb analogies. It was a dumb analogy. Yeah, I thought the joke about the extra postage was fucking hilarious. But then again, I'm not a wokester, and I think sexual jokes are funny, even in mixed company. My vagina didn't shrivel up when he said that. So, anyway, the fact that Radical Caucus people are now trying to act like they are holier than thou and criticizing Mises Caucus for the exact same things they were doing in 2016 is fucked up. And y'all better check yourself before you wreck yourself. And the Radical Caucus is my first love. Yes, now I'm a Mises Caucus person, but I'm also a member. Oh, excuse me, I drank too much Mountain Dew too fast. I'm also a member of the Radical Caucus. Ideologically, I align more with the Radical Caucus. I'm a radical. But the Mises Caucus is getting shit done, and the Radical Caucus is not. But don't go complaining about Mises people doing what your goal is just because you're not good at it. The Radical Caucus and the Mises Caucus should be kissing cousins. It's kind of gross. They should be aligned. Listen, if you want to kiss your cousin, listen, ain't no business of mine. In Colorado, you can marry your first cousin, by the way. Oh, and speaking of inappropriate jokes, Mr. Valente, Mr. Woke himself, made a impoverished redneck joke when he said, in West Virginia, our family trees are more like telephone poles rather than bushes. Did I laugh? Yeah, it's funny. The intermarriage joke is funny, but I'm not woke. Of course, he was super, super drunk when he said that. But you know what happens when you're super, super drunk? The truth comes out, doesn't it? Just ask Mel Gibson. But yeah, there is absolutely no reason for the Mises Caucus and the Radical Caucus to be at odds with each other. They have different focuses. The Radical Caucus is much more inward focused, which is funny. They're much more takeover focused. And the Mises Caucus is more about bringing people in, which who then end up in leadership positions. But that nonsense that went out today, and I'm not going to name who did it because those of you who saw the post know who did it. Stop lying, Pinocchio. All the takeover language means is we're going to come to your conventions, we're going to outcompete you, and we're going to steer this party in a direction that we like better, which is what everybody who runs for any office is trying to do. And it's what any caucus that's an ideological caucus and not something that's like the Waffle House caucus or something like that. I don't know. I'm giving them the stink eye now. I think they're trying to make waffles the law of the land. You know what I mean? They're a little sus. But the fact that y'all are getting all upset about an effective caucus within a political party tells me you are not ready to be a real political party. Because you want to know what happens in real political parties? You have caucuses that are effective and want to steer the party in the direction. That's why they formed. But the very fact that you're opposed to this shows you do not understand politics, and perhaps you need to find another hobby. Because those of us who are in it to actually win freedom, we're doing hardcore politics, and you're doing hardcore soiling your fucking diapers over it. And I think there was a super chat earlier that I forgot to thank. I don't remember, and it won't let me scroll down. I hate that it won't let me scroll down. I probably just haven't figured this out yet in this program, but thank you. Thank you very much. And there might actually even be another show tonight because I'm trying to catch up on everything. Because remember, I promised everyone that I would be, and I stop and end these because I like these to be all on one topic. The next one I want to do is on Tara DeSisto's Kafka Trap. And I don't like putting these on multiple days because I want to get back to freaking history. And if I go, I'll do this one today and the next one tomorrow. Before you know it, I got 2 weeks of shows worth of just LP crap, when I'd rather deal with historical LP crap rather than modern LP crap. Watchman State did the super chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think I will just maybe take a 5-minute break. I need to use the bathroom. I hope everything comes out okay. Yeah, that's my joke. And yeah, I think I will next talk about Tara DeSisto's Kafka Trap, because as Tara says, nobody watches my show. So I'm sure she won't mind her name in the title of a show that no one watches. Seems like she hates her name being in my titles as much as Richard Longstreth does. But Richard is right on this latest vote, but that's a whole other thing. And maybe if I can find a copy of my book, I'll come and show it to you where we were talking about hermeneutics. My book, we're going to use the big words here. It was on the hermeneutics of eschatology. Eschatology is the study of end of things. Matthew 24 is a chapter in the Bible that's allegedly about the end of the world. I don't believe it's about the end of the world at all. It's a minority view within the Christian faith. I don't believe Matthew 24 is primarily talking about the second coming at all. I believe it's talking about the destruction of the temple that happened in AD 70. I am what is called in popular parlance a partial preterist. I prefer to call myself an orthodox preterist, but that's not the terminology that's popularly adopted. The partial preterist view is a very, very small minority. I've convinced a lot of people of that view, though. And my book is, as far as I know, still required reading in a certain eschatology course at Liberty University. Not bad for someone who has no formal theological training. All right, everyone. I am going to go, and maybe in 5 minutes, we'll come back to talking about the Kafka trap. I'm on a roll.